Hey, what's up YouTube? This is GHS InfoSec, and in this video, we're going to be looking at another GuidePoint Security CTF challenge. And in this one, we're going to be enumerating an AWS instance and find some pretty sweet vulnerabilities. So let's go. All right, so we're greeted with a login page here, and we're just going to go for some low-hanging fruit, a default password of admin and admin. And we get authenticated successfully first try. And once we get authenticated, we get redirected to /admin, and we're given a status page with different widgets. They give you debug information of several websites, and you can see here the debug information only displays until the page refreshes, but it's still a pretty interesting feature because it gives you the source code of the selected website. We kind of want to explore that a little bit more to see if we can find a vulnerability. And just taking a real quick look at the source code to see if we can find another quick win. It doesn't look like there's much in here. So we're going to go ahead and jump on over to Burp Suite. And the first request we get here is a GET request to the /admin endpoint. So we're going to forward that request and then see that we get another GET request to get-targets. So we're going to go ahead and send that over to the repeater tab. Now we have a little bit of information at this point. The page auto refreshes and we get debug information on the sites that are available on this status page. And since we're going to keep getting refresh of this page every time, we're going to have to keep forwarding these requests in Burp Suite to actually find something interesting. Now back over in Burp Suite, we have a cookie, which we'll take a look at shortly. So I'll just keep forwarding these requests until I find one that stands out. And finally, we hit one. This request here is a post request, and it's to /get-status. And the parameters we have here are target equals https://facebook.com and debug equals true. And it's getting a little more interesting now because we're seeing something that we could potentially tamper with. So we'll want to send this one to the repeater too. Now back in Burp Suite, we've sent our new post request to the repeater, and the first thing I want to take a look at is this cookie. It looks like some kind of JWT token, which can be decoded from base64 to plain text just by highlighting the relevant parts in Burp Suite. And all this does is show that we're logged in, and we already know that. And then we have our CSRF token. A CSRF, aka CSRF, stands for cross-site request forgery. And CSRF tokens are designed to prevent, you guessed it, cross-site request forgery. Now, these tokens are issued by the server, and they are used to check against the client session to validate the request that was sent. So at this point, the cookie isn't really useful to us anymore because we already know that we're logged in, and we can't really tamper with the CSRF token because if we did, it would invalidate our request and it would get dropped. And we don't want that. So we have our two requests that we sent to the repeater. The GET request to the get-targets shows a JSON listing of the targets that the server will check the status of, but in this case we know it's just collecting the source code of the site. We can validate this by turning off Burp Suite and navigating to the /get-targets in the browser, but we still don't know exactly if this is a vulnerability yet. So we'll take a look at the post request that we have in the repeater, and since the debug parameter is set to true, we're able to see the source code of the target. Now this is where it starts to get more interesting. There's potentially a vulnerability here known as open redirect, which basically could allow an attacker to redirect a request to a malicious site in order to steal data or cause a victim to download malware. So we can test this theory, but since this is a CTF, there's no human targets on the other side of this. We're not going to be able to redirect any kind of attack and leverage it that way. But what we can do is hop over to the terminal and use a Python server to test this out. So over in the terminal, I'm going to spin up a quick Python web server. Since I'm on the same network as the server, I should be able to make a request to my machine and list the contents of the directory where this web server is running. And you can't really see the IP address I have down here in my tmux window, but you'll see it in a second when I go back into Burp Suite. I'll replace facebook.com with my IP address, and we'll set the protocol to use HTTP rather than HTTPS. And then we send our request, and just like that, we get a directory listing of the contents of my machine. That's awesome. All right, so this is a huge win, and to me it seems like an open redirect, but just to be clear, my web hacking skills are not very strong. So if I'm misclassifying this vulnerability, just let me know in the comments because I'm still learning here too. All right, let's pause for a second because I realized in the middle of editing this video, after thinking about it a little bit more, this technically is not an open redirect because we're not getting redirected anywhere. Basically what's happening is it's just gathering information from a target and displaying the source code. So we're not getting redirected anywhere. So I just wanted to make that clear. All right, sorry for the interruption. Doing that again. Now the question remains, how are we going to find the flag by leveraging this vulnerability here? Well, we know this is a capture the flag event, so the flag has to be on the server here somewhere. So let's consider the things that we know so far. There is a defined target list for the status page. The get-status page displays the source code of that page. We can query more websites than just what's defined in the list because we just did that against our own machine. Generally speaking, a web server that's running inside a directory that does not have web pages like index.html will list the contents of the directory. Again, we saw that on my machine. And because we got a directory listing of our local running web server, maybe we could list the contents of the remote server. But how would we do this? Let's try setting the target to localhost. So back over in Burp Suite, we're going to replace my IP address with localhost and send the request. And this time that data field is set to latest. So let's try adding /latest to localhost in our target parameter. And then we send our request. And now our data parameter says metadata. All right, so it's starting to become more clear of what's actually going on here. It appears that we have some type of directory traversal / file inclusion vulnerability, and now we're just going to enter the matrix and start adding to the target path. And at this point, there's a lot of directories here, so we got to clean it up a little bit so we can make more sense of it. So Vim to the rescue. So we copied our data, and we've got a listing here that shows the ASCII representation of a carriage return in a new line feed. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to replace those characters with an actual carriage return so we can see the real directory contents that are inside the server. Now, one thing to note here is that the trailing / denotes that it's a directory, and I can see an interesting one here called identity-credentials. So let's just keep taking the red pill and dive deeper down this rabbit hole. And we have another directory of EC2. Then we come across one. We have a couple listings here. It looks like security credentials. Okay, getting a little more juicy. Doing that again. Navigating to security credentials shows us EC2 instance. So we are really just heading downhill further and further. So let's check that out. And there's a lot more data here, but if you look closely down at the bottom, we finally found the flag. There it is, and that's it. That was a cool challenge. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that my beard grew another 2 inches after all that. And that was it. We got it. We got the flag. I hope you found this video to be helpful. If you did, if you made it this far, please like and subscribe. If you got any feedback, just leave them down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. And I'm looking forward to doing more CTFs in the future. So be sure to stick around and see what's next. My name is GHS InfoSec. Thank you for watching.